I was on a surf trip and Mark called and he was like, I want to launch this food company, Primal Kitchen. And then I came in, ran the thing, grew it to 50 million in revenue and sold it 3.5 years later to Kraft Heinz for 200 million. There is a very clear process to selling your company. I was the only woman in any of the meetings. They weren't smart enough to realize like I was making the decisions and patriarchy is alive and well.
You did $1.5 million in revenue year 1, then 13 million year 2, 26 year 3, and then 50 million year 4.
We were the first people to make a condiment that didn't have canola oil in it. I remember having the conversation in 2015, like no one knows what a seed oil is. And like, look where the conversation's gone today, right?
You've now left Primal Kitchen and Heinz and started your next business, Whey.
I'm like super passionate about the protein movement for women. To be told what we're supposed to be eating was insane. It was like, am I really gonna launch a beverage brand?
So what is the unsexy part of building a $200 million business?
Being an entrepreneur, it's like you can stress about your boss being an asshole from 9 to 5, or you can be wide awake with anxiety from 1 to 4 a.m. Like you pick.
I'm Ruffin, and this is Bridge Club, the girls' club of venture capital, bringing you into the rooms where deals actually happen. Today's guest is Morgan Zanotti. She co-founded and sold Primal Kitchen to Kraft Heinz for $200 million. And now she's building her next company, Whey, a sparkling protein water. In this episode, we cover everything from her journey quitting a job in accounting to co-founding a mayo company, lessons from scaling Primal Kitchen to $50 million in revenue in just 4 years, and how she raised $3.5 million in venture capital to build Whey. I hope you enjoyed this week's episode. This episode is brought to you by Vanta. If you're a founder or investor, you know startups move incredibly fast, and especially so in this era of AI. Startups in my portfolio are attracting enterprise customers much earlier in their life cycles. But these enterprise opportunities come with compliance requirements. So working with Vanta can literally make or break 6- and 7-figure deals. Vanta automates the painful parts of compliance like SOC 2, ISO 27001, HIPAA, and other frameworks so you can focus on building instead of drowning in audit paperwork. With AI changing regulations and buyers' expectations, Vanta continuously monitors your compliance so future deals are never blocked. Vanta knows what's needed and when, and they've built the fastest, easiest path to get you there. That's why fast-growing companies like Ramp and Cursor get in compliance early with Vanta. And right now, Vanta is offering $1,000 off for Bridge Club viewers. If you're building something for enterprise customers, go to vanta.com/Ruffin or check out the link in the description. And huge thank you to Vanta for this partnership. Morgan, hi, welcome to Bridge Club.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Oh my gosh, so excited to have you. So, want to start off hearing a little bit about your early career. So you actually started working as an accountant, which I also started as an accountant, auditor.
Okay, amazing.
Really fun.
Yeah,
fun,
I did a little
times.
auditing too. I think that put me right over the edge. I was like, oh, I don't think I'm going to be doing this for a living.
That was not it.
Yeah, that was not it.
And then you went on to build and sell Primal Kitchen for $200 million, which is incredible. So tell us a bit more about your early career. What did it look like? And how did you end up starting Primal Kitchen?
Yeah, so let's see. I went into college as a psych major, and then I was like, oh, this is a lot of science. This is too hard for me. I'm going to switch to the business school because I was like, math came easy. And then it was like the hardest major in the business school is accounting. I was like, okay, this feels like practical. I'll just do that. So I ended up doing that, got a job as an accountant after college. I actually got a job, my first job, I got 2 offers on the same day after college. One was to be a recruiter and one was to be an accountant. And I took the recruiting job because it came with a BlackBerry. So that like really ages me here. But it was like 2006 or something. And I was like, I'm in for the BlackBerry. And then I did that for like 24 hours. And I was like, oh, I made a mistake. So I called the accounting firm back and I was like, do you still need someone? They're like, sure. So I worked there for not even a year. Quit to be a waitress in northern Wisconsin at my aunt and uncle's resort that's like Dirty Dancing called Coons Franklin Lodge at the lake where I've kind of spent my whole life. Honestly, the lake has really dictated almost every decision I've made in my whole life. Like all of the things have been filtered through like the how do I spend the most time at the lake in Wisconsin. So I've quit numerous jobs to go spend the summer at the lake, which I fully stand behind. I do the accounting thing. I quit. I moved to South America. I convinced a friend to go with me. We live in Buenos Aires for like 6 months. It's supposed to be a 6-month trip. I ended up traveling for like 2.5 years all through South America. Got my yoga certification in Hawaii, kind of like fell in love with health and wellness, met a woman in Colombia who was from California. I've still at this point in my life never been to California. And she was like, oh, you got to do this cleanse, this standard process thing. So I get into all this like health and wellness stuff just on my own. And then I come home and I just have a total meltdown. I'm like, okay, I'm now like 26 or something, 25. I don't remember. All my friends have jobs. They're like live downtown Chicago. I'm like back at my parents' house. I don't know what I want to do with my life. I'm like, I'm so behind. You know, I'm having like the typical like 20 something kind of crisis. So my dad's like, you got to see my therapist, who I saw when I was your age. So I start working with this therapist, David, who actually is a therapist, ironically, for a lot of entrepreneurs. And he's still my therapist now. He's like in his late 80s. He's amazing.
Love this.
So he was kind of like a good, just like confidence builder for me along the journey. And then I go to work for an advertising agency in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Do that. I learned how to surf when I was in South America. So then I surf Lake Michigan in the winter when I'm working at the advertising agency. And then I end up coming to visit California. And I surfed in Manhattan Beach. And I was like, what am I doing with my life? So then 2 months later, I just went to quit. And my boss was like, do you have something else lined up? And I was like, no. And he's like, great, then just stay on remote. I moved to LA. And then I take a director of marketing role at Kavita. So Kavita was like beverage startup doing less than 10 million in revenue, running it out of kind of like a garage in Oxnard. They were structuring their buyout with PepsiCo at the time. I lasted a very short period of time there as well, consulted. And then I met this guy, Mark Sisson. So Mark was blogging at this blog called Mark's Daily Apple, he was like an early paleo blogger. This was like before the term influencer even existed. TikTok was not in existence at this point in time. So it's 2013 when I met Mark. And then he called a few months later. I was on a surf trip with my husband. I had quit the Kavita and I didn't really know what I was going to do next. So we're living in this juicy van on a surf trip from San Francisco to San Diego. And Mark called and he was like, hey, remember meeting you at that event a few months ago? Like, I want to launch this food company. Do you think you can help? So I met with Mark and then I started helping him on Primal Kitchen, and then came in, ran the thing, grew it to 50 million in revenue, and sold it 3.5 years later to Kraft Heinz for 200 million.
You did $1.5 million in revenue year 1, then 13 million year 2, 26 year 3, and then 50 million year 4. But what was the secret to like really unlocking that kind of growth and that pace of growth?
I mean, I think, look, nowadays, like things are scaling even faster than that, right? Like with social media. So I think it's like the right product at the right time and then the right strategy, knowing what you want your like final outcome to be. So, and a lot of this for us was kind of just dumb luck. And a lot of it was like work Mark had done before I met him. He had a blog with 300,000 newsletter subscribers. He had like motivated and educated all these people on health and wellness. So we just had so much authenticity out the gate. And we were super innovative. We were the first people to make a condiment that didn't have canola oil in it. So I remember having the conversation in 2015, like, what should we put on the front panel? We can't say no seed oils because no one knows what a seed oil is. And like, look where the conversation's gone today,
I feel like
right?
Only now people are aware of that.
You know, it's 11 years since we launched and it's kind of now become
very ahead of the times.
Yeah, we were very ahead of the times on that front, but there were enough people who cared a lot to kind of carry the movement forward.
So tell me more about why you started with the mayo as the product, and then you obviously expanded into so many more things. I
mean, the mayo was also kind of dumb luck. So we were working on like a barbecue sauce. Mark wanted to do some salad dressings, and we were working on the mayonnaise. The mayonnaise just happened to be commercialized first. So like, people don't realize it takes time to like find a co-man, come up with a recipe. You don't need a chef, you need a formulator who understands food science. Then you need someone who's willing to run your product. And a lot of people don't want to take on like a small food and beverage startup. The rate of failure is super high. They put a ton of work into like commercializing your first production run and they may never get another order from you. So getting that kind of like trifecta together takes a while. So we had a fallout with a co-man who was going to make our sauces. Also, we got our sauce formula and Mark was like, I'm obsessed with this Carolina Gold barbecue sauce. And I got the formula and I was like, yeah, we're not launching this. The second ingredient is maple syrup and there's like 28 grams. This was back when everyone was just like slapping paleo on a label and it was like, it's fine. 60 grams of sugar, but it's honey and maple syrup. Like, you're good. You know,
that feels
and I was
anti
like, no.
to the brand ethos.
Yeah, so we ended up going really all in on like unsweetened and all in on soy and canola oil free. And there's mayonnaise or there's sugar in most mayonnaise now, which people don't realize either. So just, you know, cleaning things up from that perspective worked for us. They were sleepy categories that hadn't really been innovated in. I don't know. It was a lot of just like the right product in the right time.
Yeah. Sugar sneaks into everything somehow.
It's crazy.
It's insane.
Yeah.
So when you sold Primal Kitchen for $200 million, you and Mark owned 95% of the business, which is definitely the exception to most stories. Can you share a little bit around why you guys decided not to take on external capital and bootstrap the business instead?
I was very much the minority shareholder in the transaction, but I'm very thankful to Mark for including me. And I should say the best day of my life, the day we sold, we bonused every single person who worked for us, down to forklift drivers in the warehouse. And it was the way the company kind of came about, there wasn't really a path to be able to put an equity pool in place for employees because we launched Primal Kitchen out of a company that was already in existence. So there's value on that. You probably could explain it more than I could on just the consequences. It wasn't Primal Kitchen was almost like an offshoot in a supplement D2C business that was declining, but doing maybe $10 million in revenue with $2 million of EBITDA. So we diverted the EBITDA from the business into we kind of used funds from that to launch Primal. So that allowed us to stay scrappy. And then Primal just kept dwarfing, every year Primal would just dwarf the supplement business. I end up kind of taking over all of it. And the supplement business just kind of continued to decline. But I think when we got to the point where we needed to do a serious round of financing, we were okay, we either take on a private equity partner and then we're working for 3 to 5 more years so they can earn their 3 to 5x on their investment. And we're likely going to then walk away with maybe the same amount of money, or we find a strategic who wants to come in and buy the whole thing. We had private equity and we had strategics in our final process. There were 2 private equity players and 2 strategics. It actually came down to 1 private equity player and 1 strategic. We launched Primal when Mark was 62. I was 34 when we sold. Mark was maybe 66. I guess Mark's 72 now. So I was let's GTFO. Let's go. We were the world. Imagine it's January of 2019. So COVID hasn't happened. And we were I don't know, this election. We're just there's so much uncertainty. Let's just get out. I stayed and ran the company for Kraft for 5 years. I'm actually still an advisor in the business. And so is Mark to this day. So it was a super just amazing, successful story. Ride.
Yeah.
Blast.
Crazy because the acquisition happened 4 years after launch or 5 years?
We launched February of 2015 and we closed January of 2019, but signed November 28th of 2018. So it was 3.5 years from launch to signing and we closed a few months after that.
To that point, can you share a little bit around the process? What goes into?
Yeah, this was something just like everything else I've ever done that I had no freaking idea what I was doing, right? And I remember we did a bake-off, which is when you have a bunch of bankers come in and pitch to sell your company.
Funny. So it's called a bake-off?
Yeah, you've never heard of this?
No.
I hadn't either. But I just there is a very clear process to selling your company. Most companies aren't just some strategics not just hey, we'll buy you for $100 million. Most of the time, a company markets that they're for sale and they hire a banker to go sell the company and they lead a formal process. It's called a process, okay? So the first step, though, was hiring a banker. And in order to do that, you do a bake-off. So you have all these people come in and pitch. We kind of ran, this is so epic, but I don't even think I fully appreciated this until the other day, but we kind of ran Primal out of the Soho little beach house in Malibu.
That's incredible.
Because Mark was a member there. We didn't really have offices. We were remote before anyone was remote. And so we'd meet up once a week or once a month or have our board meetings at the Soho house. So we had our bake-off at the Soho house. So we invited all these bankers to come pitch the business. And it was a lot of I was the only woman in any of the meetings. So they'd come in, to pitch us. That financial industry, the patriarchy is alive and well. They'd come in to pitch us and they didn't really give me the time of day. I feel everyone was kind of pitching Mark, but they weren't smart enough to realize I was making the decisions. So we finished this bake-off and I was the vibes are off. Q4 was always a drag for us. And then January, our business would almost double every year. It would be this huge new year, new you. And then we'd kind of sustain for the year. And then we'd see a little bit of trickle off on Q4. And then we'd pick back up in January. And that was kind of our
Everyone's
cycle.
Trying to hit their New Year's
Right. That
health
was
goals.
And Whole30 was big back then. And people would commit to the paleo diet or the Whole30 diet or keto or whatever. They'd commit in January. So we did this bake-off in the fall, and I was there is no hell yes in the room that we met with. They'd come in with a 60-page deck and tell you how much they thought they could sell the business for. And I just was no, let's just pause this for a minute. And then in the spring, we were introduced to this woman, Romitha, who I love. And we met with her and I was well, this is a hell yes. Yeah. We just hired her immediately in April. And then we led the process. So then she goes out with a book. These investment bankers dig in and know more about your business than you do. And they help you kind of pull all your materials together, anticipate what any diligence is going to look like, and present your company to people. Then you're in a process. So then you're okay, we're taking I can't remember if it's IOI or LOI that comes first, whatever the acronym is. And it was like on a day we would get letters from people who were interested in moving forward and learning more about the business. And then that progressed to management presentations. So then it was down to like 4. We flew 4 companies into Shutters in Santa Monica. I'm 32 weeks pregnant at this point in time.
Insane.
There is no hiding the fact that I'm pregnant. I'm huge. We had these like 8-hour meetings, one a day for 4 days in a row. And people flew in from all over the world. So there were 2 strategics. It was intense. I remember being so nervous. And so pregnant. It was intense. We had a few key people on the team involved. And then it just came. Then like 2 people dropped out. They were like, not the right fit for us. And 2 people remained. And then they kind of like put an offer on the table and we picked which one we wanted to sign. So we went with Kraft Heinz.
Crazy.
Here we are.
And how did it feel like once you got to that point of like the deal is done?
The deal doesn't feel done until the money gets wired to the bank
I'm
account.
sure.
So we signed on November 28th, and then we were like, there's like no way. The deal got leaked to the Chicago Tribune before we had called any of our employees. So Mark and I we had been talking about what we were going to bonus everyone for years, but then we had to go do this like emergency.
And did the team have any idea?
We divvied up the team. I mean, a few people, but no, for the most part, no.
Crazy.
Yeah, it was crazy. So we had to then go call. I was like, all right, you call these 30 people, I'll call these 30 people. And we were like, having our Oprah, like, you get a car moment, and everyone's crying. And then money was wired January 3rd. So then we were like, oh, okay, I guess this is real.
Crazy. And had you had the baby at that point?
I had the baby November 6th, and we signed November 28th, my first.
Crazy.
So yeah, I mean, the last 3 weeks before you sign a deal are insane. And then imagine recovering from a C-section and breastfeeding a newborn baby. I remember at one time looking at my husband and being like, I just don't know if I can do it anymore. He's like, you're almost there. Like, you got this.
That is crazy.
Yeah.
And so then you stayed on with Heinz for 5 years.
Yes.
And you're still like actively involved as an
Yes.
advisor. It sounds like. How is their transition going from like co-founder of the company to being like a team member of this larger organization?
Kraft like doesn't ever like boast enough about how like great they did with the Primal Kitchen integration. So for the first year, we were still so small. Imagine you're a $50 million business in like a $10, $20 billion portfolio, right? So we were almost too small to matter. So they kind of just left us alone. We did have an earn out on the deal. So there was another 30 million potential that we could earn 2 years post acquisition. And we had to get the business from 50 to 105 million in 2 years. And we did like 105.8 to get like a 10 million add on. But you always like just assume you're not going to get your earn out. But I was pretty motivated for that. So that was cool.
Good incentive.
Yeah, it was a great incentive.
And then also like once Primal was sold, how did you and your team think about like ensuring that the product quality stayed the same, the ethos of the brand stayed the same? I'm sure that's kind of
honestly,
a big discussion.
Kraft, like our first meeting, they flew out and we like whiteboarded for 5 hours on like what would be acceptable ingredients, what wouldn't. But the honest to God truth is like we drove innovation for 5 years. So like at some point, did someone say like, should we try like a conventional SKU that has high oleic sunflower oil? And then everyone would be like, nah. And so it just never, like, it was never an issue. They were never like, let's cut cost. We're going to like grow Kraft Heinz by improving EBITDA margins on like this tiny business. Like they didn't acquire us for that. Like they acquired us for growth. They didn't acquire us for like bottom line. So they just really were like, let's not mess this up. And then they stuck to their word about it. Yeah.
That's amazing.
I thought they'd fire me, like for sure. I was like, for sure they're going to fire me. They're going to realize like, I don't know how to do a PowerPoint presentation. I like swear I'm a hugger. I'm a total walking HR nightmare. Like there's no way I'll survive this corporate America thing. And then they just kept not firing me.
It worked out. But you've now left Primal Kitchen and Heinz and started your next business, Whey.
Yeah.
So one, tell us what Whey is and also what inspired you to start this business.
I started to get like a little restless entrepreneur energy about 2 years ago. And I had been getting hit up to do different like CEO roles and whatever. And then I kind of came up with this idea. I'm just like a millennial mom trying to get 100 grams of protein a day, right? I have 3 kids under the age of 7. And I was like, I'm supposed to be eating this protein thing. I'm also like, side note, super here for the protein movement for women. I'm like super passionate about this. As a female in America who has been like dragged through the trenches of just like what they're telling us we're supposed to be eating, which is insane. If you think back to like my whole life, I'm 42. I think back to like what the message was to my mom. It's like, ladies, we're cutting calories, like 100 calorie Nabisco snack packs. And then it was like, okay, wait. It's the fat. We need you to cut the fat. So it's like, okay, low fat, everything. Okay, no, you know what? It's not the fat. We need you to cut the carbs now. So we're running around restricting the carbs. And then it was like, actually, hold on. We're intermittent fasting. If you could just not eat it all, that'd be great. And then protein came around. And I don't think anybody talks about like how important it is for women to be told like it's actually good to be stronger and like satiated and like you can build muscle and all these things protein just does for our body that it's like got to be the most clinically studied macronutrient, right? So I think protein's been the basis of every diet that's ever existed. We've just talked about it a different way. We used to be like, don't eat the bun. And now we're just saying eat more of the burger patty. It's kind of the same thing. So I'm just here psychologically and physically for protein for women, for myself and for every other woman. So I learned about clear whey protein isolate and I was like, you're kidding me. Like I've been a big whey consumer forever. We sell whey protein at Primal. We always have. It was like one of my favorite products we make. I was like, you're telling me I could like put the whey protein in this like shitty LaCroix I'm drinking 4 of a day that tastes like dirty socks and we could just like call this a day. So that's kind of how whey came about. So I'm like, how has no one done this? This is genius. Like, let's just wrap this up and call it a day. Like, this is what I need in my life. So it was really kind of like a product created for me.
Love that. We all need more protein. And it's like, how much more chicken can I eat?
Right.
Like, we need other unique ways to get it in.
No kidding. Which is kind of honestly like one of the reasons we started Primal was like, we all need more meat and vegetables, but like, how much more grilled chicken can I eat? Like, it doesn't taste that good unless you're putting like Hawaiian barbecue sauce on it.
Yeah. What were in the protein space? What were like some of the other products in market that you were seeing where you're like, okay, there's like very much a gap in need for the protein?
Well, I mean, we've seen the explosion of like Fairlife and all of their, that whole movement. I think like for a while, a lot of the like plant-based alternatives were growing, but I just feel like plant-based is kind of gone, more or less. But there wasn't really much clear protein in the market. Yeah. Like when I started working on this project, actually like I presented to Whole Foods a year ago and no one else presented a clear protein to Whole Foods. So they had never seen it before. And now there's like 40 brands in existence that are doing similar thing to me, but not to say that they copied me. I think it was all kind of like a collective realization that like, oh, this is a thing.
We realized we need this.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, I hate like the protein powders that like get mixed up and like mushy. It's just like.
Yeah, I got turned off shakes. Once I got pregnant, like the shakes kind of like lost their luster for me.
Can you share a little bit around like the formulation process of Whey?
Yeah. So when you're doing your formulation, there's like, I've done it with Whey and Primal Kitchen so many different ways. Like have a chef take it to the co-man, have them do the finalizing, go to a R&D house. You can go to a flavor house. They'll do it for you for free. For me, I had like a team member who was helping, and then also just different people touched it along the way, multiple different flavor houses. It took a long time for me to get a product that I was like, oh, I would drink this. It was hard.
How long is that process?
I mean, for me, I was working on the formula for like 2 years before we came to market.
Wow.
But half that time I was like, I'm not really going to do this. Am I really going to launch a beverage brand? This is crazy. You'd have to be like suicidal knowing what I know and step into this. So there was a lot of just like, hemming and hawing.
What is so scary about starting a beverage brand specifically?
I mean, I think CPG is just hard, right? Like it's so fun because you can sell something like, I don't know, I'm a little bit of a minimalist and I feel like selling like clothes or something, it's just like, it feels like garbage to me, but like everybody has to eat. So, there's something, I don't know, there's just something primal about it. But beverage is really challenging. It's super capital intensive and it's a hard category, but it's also a huge TAM. Like, mayonnaise is a $3 billion category. I think sparkling water is a $22 billion category to give you some perspective. So
crazy. Yeah. I did not know that. So to that point, you're already in Amazon and nationwide at Whole Foods and Target.
And Sprouts.
Sprouts.
Yes.
Which is crazy just in the time frame of your launch. And you've even turned down some of the bigger retailers. So how has the growth been at Whey and how is it compared to Primal? Like what has been different?
It feels just wholly different, like so different. I can't even describe it. I kind of ended up as a solopreneur without really like meaning to because I wasn't even sure I wanted to do this last April. And then Whole Foods said, we'll take it in October nationwide.
Like,
and I like pulled the whole thing together in like 3 months. But there was no time to be like, I should find a co-founder. I should do whatever. So I just kind of like, it's very different doing it myself versus having Mark and Rick. And so I'm on the hunt for a CEO. But yeah, no, it's a different time, right? Like Imagine we kind of were the first people we were like one of the first brands to do influencer marketing before there was any influencer. We launched on an Instagram account when like Instagram was just people's food photos.
Yeah.
Like a lot of people listening might be too young to even remember this, but it was just like people documenting what they ate.
My friend ran a food account and like that was like the era of Instagram.
We were early on influencer. There were still things to be early on. Like it's a little more mature now. I think you see like, look, even Poppy, they'll launch like 5 years ago or 6 or 7, I don't know. But like they were early on TikTok and that kind of like catapulted their growth. So I think just feels like a different time in the industry. I think we have a bunch of big macro trends that are really like driving a lot of volatility, like GLP-1 use, which I think is a benefit for me, but maybe not for other categories in the grocery store for sure. If you're like in...
Definitely a benefit for you.
Definitely a benefit for me. But yeah, there's just a lot of macro trends going on. It's also so much more like, I don't know if everyone feels like this in every industry, but like it felt a little more cottage in 2015 and it feels much more like spotlight. Like there's people who make a living writing about food and beverage brands. Yeah. There was like 2 publications.
Yeah, like
12 years ago. Like
content is like a true business.
Industry content, yeah. So it's just definitely more like in the spotlight than it was in 2015. We kind of were just like doing our own thing under the radar. And it just feels like there's no under the radar anymore.
But do you think that's partially because you're a second-time founder?
Probably.
Yeah, I feel like that's definitely part of it too.
Probably.
So to your point, you co-founded Primal with Mark Sisson and maybe Rick as well. How have you thought about going this time around as a solopreneur? And also, how did you think about finding the right business partner?
So I don't have for Primal?
Yeah.
I mean, Mark brought me in and I brought Rick in. Mark's really the founder. I'm like, he was nice enough to give me a co-founder title. I ran the whole thing, but like,
you're being very
Mark's
humble.
The founder. And Rick was our COO, CFO. We brought him in early as a consultant and he carried us like through the acquisition. He's amazing. So the 3 of us kind of like were the board and the operators. Yeah. And Rick was probably the only professional in the room. Like, you know.
What made you guys work well together?
Because we all had like a very clear lanes. Like Mark was just like face of the brand, kissing babies, shaking hands, financing, and like legal stuff. I ran like strategy, go-to-market, sales, marketing. I mean, I onboarded our first co-man, but pretty quickly like handed that over to Rick. And then Rick just really owned like, we had a $9 million line of credit that Mark had a personal guarantee on that, you know, Rick really set up and kind of helped us. We'd go to the bank meetings, but like, you know, Rick worked on the financing part of the business and the ops part of the business. He really owned that. And he's amazing. Retired now. Otherwise I would steal him. But I've tried to convince him. I'm like, don't you want to come work on this beverage? And he's like, I'm living in Italy half the year and I'm like really enjoying my retirement. I'm like, come on. Yeah, I respect that too. We just got along great. And they were like amazing, like just amazing people to work with. And we just had so much fun. Then I just hired all my friends and we just had a blast.
Best case.
It was so fun. Yeah.
Do you have any?
It's still fun. I was out to dinner last night with my Primal Kitchen teams in town actually. And we were out to dinner last night and I was like, it's just as fun as ever.
Yeah. Is it weird now having like left Primal and not being with them every day? I feel like even just like leaving a regular job, it's so weird.
Well, what is weird is because I hired all my friends to actually driving here. I had a 45-minute drive here today. And I was like, oh, I would normally call like Anna or Amanda. And then I was like, oh, they're in an offsite meeting all day today that I'm not invited to. And I'm like, who do I call? I don't even know who I talk to anymore. You know, most of my team is still there. That's 7 years post-acquisition.
That's incredible.
Yeah. So we still get to like chat on all things Primal.
Maybe poach some of them over to Whey.
No, I can't afford anyone over there. No, it's going to be a while for me. But
I want to hear more about why you have chosen to be a solo founder.
I mean, I didn't choose this life. This life chose me and I'm ready for this phase of solopreneurship to end.
Tell us more.
I just think like my lawyer, I remember saying to me like, oh, I love that you don't have a co-founder because there's a lot of horror stories, right? But also like I'm someone who hired and maintained relationships with every single friend I hired and it's fine at Primal. So like, I don't think that I have a lot of like weaknesses. That isn't one. But yeah, I just think it all happened so fast. But sometimes just because you can do something doesn't mean you should. So I'm really ready for some support like
So would you look to bring on like a co-founder or a CEO?
Yeah, I would look to bring on a co-founder CEO for sure.
I feel like that also can just be nice, like to have like a collaboration partner and like there's
some
so
thought
many
leadership
amazing
at the
things.
top and like, for sure.
Totally.
I'm very excited.
So for Whey, you've raised venture capital for this business. I believe $3 or $3.5 million from Kate McAndrew and the Baukunst team. Can you share just a little bit more around like why you decided to take on external capital and how it feels different having VC money?
I think Mark's risk tolerance is like much higher than mine. Like much
taking
higher.
on a line of credit I don't think I could sleep.
No, I couldn't. There's no way I could handle it. Actually, this is a total tangential side note, but I dropped my DNA data from 23andMe, like the raw data into Claude and my blood work from Function into Claude. And I was like, because I have migraines. So I was like, explain to me why I have these migraines. And I told it everything about my migraines and also like, how do I get rid of them? And it ended up telling me like, you actually are predisposed to like more anxiety because of this certain pathway with this genetic thing. Because for a minute I was like, I don't know. I'm just like, this is just too much pressure to carry the load solo. So I really need partnership around the table. There was no way I was putting I wasn't mortgaging my house to do it.
Sure.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
No, that would be too much for me. I would have had like an actual mental breakdown, I think, at this point.
I would.
And Kate's amazing. I raised from friends and family and then $2 million from Baukunst. And I love Kate. She's amazing. Incredible. She's become like a close friend. Yeah.
She's very much a light in the world of VC. Yeah. There's a lot of bad players out there, unfortunately.
Yeah, I love her.
Yeah. Any like learning lessons from the VC fundraising process?
I'm baby giraffing it a bit. Like I've never done this before. So like I'm kind of learning as I go.
Totally.
Yeah.
I think that's like the only thing you can do.
I guess, yeah. I mean, I think everybody tells you to like raise more than you need and probably earlier than you need. And I think I would like stand by that. Like, and sometimes Kate brought this up to me once. Sometimes it's like easier to raise on hopes and dreams before you have revenue. And then once you have revenue, it's like becomes a math game. Yep. And like you need enough to stretch the hopes and dreams money to when you have real numbers to justify your next valuation. I think also like not raising at too high of a valuation. I think that can hurt you and your optionality later.
Like take the capital when you can get it because markets also change. Like everything can change so quickly.
Everything is changing.
So you've also had 3 kids, 3 boys, which your house must be crazy.
It's fun. It's crazy.
I have 1 daughter now and I'm like, how do people do this? Yeah. So how have you like navigated building businesses through all this and motherhood?
I think I was lucky in that I didn't have kids until we sold Primal, right? Like, so that timing was
totally good timing.
Cosmically perfection for
me. But
me.
also crazy that you were going through a sales process while you're having your first.
Yeah, that was nuts. It was fine. Insane. I don't know. You kind of have superpowers when you're like pregnant. And even like when I started concepting this idea, my kids were 1, 3, and 5. And I think people were like, oh, it's going to get easier. And actually, I think the hardest year of parenting for me has coincided with this year of Whey launch. So like my little one turned 3 in July and like he's just a 3-year-old and 3-year-olds are really hard. So I feel like parenting has like ramped up. Like when you have a 1, 3, and 5-year-old, like 2 people are napping every day, right? Like
now you have to like entertain them and like get them in all these activities.
The little one has FOMO, which should still be napping, but he's not napping unless he falls asleep in the car. So that's crazy. Yeah. And there's just a lot more energy. But I'm just like very clear that my number 1 priority is being a mom and I'm not willing to like drop the ball on anything there. So I like pretty much don't travel for work. Like,
I was going to say, how do you like make that work in practice? Even
our first production run, I sent our VP of ops. I was like, I'm not going. Maybe any other founder would go. Like, I'm going to be no help there. I don't know anything about making anything. Like overnight me the product to taste and like, we're good. Like takes a big act. Like I've flown to meet with Target this year. I'm going to a Whole Foods Summit in a couple weeks. Yeah.
There's certain things. You just have to like be so ruthless about prioritizing what makes sense.
I really do. Or even like I was supposed to go up to our like flavor house to do some innovation work. And I just sent 2. I was like, I don't feel like going the day before. And I was talking to one of my employees and she's like, just send us. Like, and I was like, great. And they did a great job. And I'm like so happy with that.
And that's why you hire an amazing team.
Yeah. It's too hard. The travel on top of like the mom and that like puts you over the edge because you get so behind and you're exhausted. And so that
even before kids, I found work travel to be exhausting. Yeah. So then coming back to like mayhem is probably even more intense.
Yeah. And I work from home. There is a little part of me that's like, oh, I should be at the farmer's market on Thursday. You know, like I feel like I'm missing a little bit, which is really depressing. But
it is hard to like be in the house and be like,
it's hard to be in the house.
My daughter just came back from story time. I'm like, oh, maybe I should be taking her to that in the morning.
Why am I not going to story time? I know, that's hard.
But I do think it's amazing for kids to see parents working and building businesses. And so that's what I take.
Yeah. No, my boys are cute. Like they're like expert tasters at this point. They love Whey. There was friends over this week and like one of the kids were drinking Whey and my oldest was like, my mom made this, you know, like, and it was really
so
sweet.
Cool.
I was like, oh, he like is.
Do they have favorite flavors?
My 3-year-old only drinks grapefruit and he drinks like 3 a day. My oldest drinks orange and the middle one just like drinks anything.
Anything exciting coming down the line for Whey? Like any big updates or things?
We have a top secret new SKU coming to a retailer later this fall. So I'm super excited about that. And then some other innovation coming, always innovation coming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to close us with some rapid fire questions. Is there any advice that you've ignored along the way that has actually turned out to be true and you wish you had followed that advice?
Yeah, like don't launch a beverage company. No, I mean, I'm half joking. No, everyone would be like, don't do it. What are you, nuts? And there's a lot of days where I'm like, what have I done? Like this so much. So that is like, there is a little like truth in that. I think like we launched into frozen foods. We had a bar line. Like a very close mentor, a friend of mine was like, just focus on something and do it really well. And we didn't really listen, but the business ended up kind of like taking care of that for us because we just happened to have 70% of our sales be condiments. So we were focused, but it wasn't because we were focused. It was because the consumer just happened to be resonating with like one category we launched into. So that's like advice I would stand by.
What about your secret to getting past imposter syndrome?
Girl, I have the worst imposter syndrome on the face of the earth. I don't know that it like ever goes away.
Well, that makes me feel way better.
I don't know.
And I'm sure it'll make a lot of people listening feel a lot better.
I feel like at the point you get past imposter syndrome, you're probably taking a role you already know how to do. So imposter syndrome just might go with growth.
And like if you're not in a role where you are growing and pushing yourself.
Yeah, you can get rid of imposter syndrome by just doing something you've already done that you know how to do in your sleep.
100%
which
agree.
Also like sounds great.
There are moments where I'm like, that sounds
with
nice.
that. Like there is nothing wrong with that at all. I mean, every mom friend I know who's like happy being a mom and working is probably not suffering from imposter syndrome because she's probably just kicking ass at her job that she knows how to do better than anybody knows how to do it.
Okay, so what is the unsexy part of building a $200 million business?
I think like building your team and the people is really hard the first year. There's a lot of like trial, breakup. It's kind of tumultuous before you get at least for us, it was at Primal. And I think at Whey, being an entrepreneur, it's like you can stress about your boss being an asshole from 9 to 5, or you can be wide awake with anxiety from 1 to 4 a.m.
Yeah.
Like you pick.
Yeah.
It's like your choice. But there is no just like, oh, it's just so easy being an entrepreneur or a founder. It's just, I mean, Mark probably carried a lot of the pressure I'm carrying now. And I was just like ignorant enough to like be optimistic and know we would just figure it out and it was fine.
The stress and lack of sleep is not
With the
fun.
Kids is also, that's a layer. Yeah.
No, not fun at all. What woman has been the biggest advocate for you in your career?
A few people come to mind, but like Kate investing in a female-owned business. And she's also just an amazing like mentor and supporter of mine. So like I've called her before and been like almost in tears, like, one time I called her and I was like, do you ever hate the life you created for yourself? And she was like, all the time. Like, she's like, but we got this. And like, we never would have been happy doing like the 9 to 5. So like, she's super supportive. The banker who sold Primal Kitchen is a woman, Romitha, and she's been amazingly supportive. And then 2 employees, I hired a woman who hired me, Amanda. She still works at Primal Kitchen today. She's like my therapist best friend and has always just been like, able to talk me off the ledge when I'm like having imposter syndrome or a lot of self-doubt or just like, I don't know what I'm doing or this isn't going to work. And then Anna's my best friend. She was my first hire at Primal. She's still there today. And she's just like a beacon of light and positivity and like support in my life. That's just like an endless flow of, love. And I feel very supported by and my best friend, Natalia, who works for me at Whey. She is always just like, has my best interests at heart and is just like another therapist best friend. So I would say those 5
truly the best.
Held it together for me.
Too many to choose from.
Yeah, I couldn't pick one.
And what impact do you want to leave for the next generation of women?
I mean, I think just doing it as a woman is like, motivating and empowering for other women because it is harder for us. Like It's harder to get fundraising. It's harder to be taken seriously in certain rooms. But I think that, I hope the message I could leave to women is like, not this like, it's hard and we can push through. It's more just like, it's actually a fucking superpower to be a woman and like use it. You know what I mean? Like you don't have to show up like a man. You can show up as your true authentic self and like lifting up and supporting and hiring other women. We have an all-female
100%.
board, a female lead investor, and pretty much only female employees at Whey. And Primal was always the joke. It was like, me, 10 girls, our one sales guy, Alex and Mark. You know, women run CPG.
Yeah.
We drive most of the purchase decisions. There's a lot of female entrepreneurs in CPG and consumer packaged goods for those food, beverage, supplements. We're kind of driving the industry. So, you know, that's a fun place to be.
Yeah, what about your customers? Are they mainly women?
I mean, Primal is like 72% women shopping. I'm sure that it's more like 50-50 consuming, but like adding to cart is 72% women. Yeah, I think consumer over indexes on the female side.
Amazing. Well, Morgan, thank you so much for coming on the show. This was so fun. Just to close it out, where can everyone find you and where can they shop Whey?
You can find me at Morgan Zanotti, Zanotti on Instagram and TikTok. We're at drinkway.com. Go check us out at Target, Whole Foods, or Sprouts.
Amazing. Thank you.
Thanks, Ruffin.